Okay, now we're going to look at something called absolute value functions, but we're going to stick with lines. We're going to keep it really, really simple. So look what I have here. I have f of x equals x. What does this mean? Well, remember, f of x is another fancy way of saying y. So basically, y equals x. So any value you have for x, it's the same for y. Take a look at my table of values here. Here's my f of x function. So I'm going to take this minus 3, put it in there. Well, guess what? Minus 3 equals to y. So this is going to be minus 3. Put a minus 2 in here, same thing. Minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. Now, remember how to graph this? I don't know if you can remember how to graph this or not, but here, I've got a nice little graph here, and it says, look, there's 1, 2, 3, minus 3, 1, 2, 3, minus 3. There it is down here. Minus 2, 2 is here, minus 1, 1 is here, 0, 0 is here, and so on and so on and so on and so on. Now I'm going to raise this graph up a little bit so that you can see it a bit better. What I can do now is I can draw this beautiful line right down through here, goes through 0, 0, right there, and everything's fine. There's my y equals to x graph. Now, let's go over to this one now. Look at what I'm doing for g of x now. For g of x, I'm just taking the absolute value. Well, down here, when you absolute value of 3, that doesn't change anything. It's the same value. Absolute value of here, it looks the same so far. This graph looks the same. Check this out. And as a matter of fact, on this graph, they will be the same points. This point, this point, this point, all of these points going up this direction will always be the same. So look at this. From this point here, from the 0, 0 that way, the points are going to be the same. So basically, you're going to get this same graph again, aren't you? So for any value of x that is greater than or equal to this 0, this point right here, okay, these values are exactly this graph. So you get a positive x value. Aha. So now let's take a look what happens next though. Take a look at this. Now we absolute value this. We're no longer a -1 here, are we? We're actually a 1. Absolute value of this is a 2. Absolute value of this is a 3. Oh my goodness. So what are you doing here? What you're doing here is -1 is now 1. -2 is now +2. -3 is +3. -4 is +4. And look what happens to your graph. Check this out. So what happens here is, whoop, there you go. Boom. You're going to get a graph that looks exactly like this. So on this portion of the x, right, where x is less than 0, so this is the kind of like a critical point, and that's actually what we're going to refer to it as, is it's going to be referred to as a critical point. Okay, so at this point where it's a critical point, we go in this direction, it looks like a normal graph. But when we go in this direction, take a look at exactly what we're doing. Check it out. What was -3 is now, look at this, whoop, +3. Wow. Didn't you study this way back in, I think, grade 8, and you call this a mirror line, right? This is a mirror line. Oops, put too many arcs in there. This is a mirror line. So isn't this kind of like a reflection? Look at that. Count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh my goodness. So if that's -6, this becomes +6. So basically, aren't you just flipping every single one of these? So how do we indicate that we're flipping every single one of these? Every single one of these points gets flipped. Mirror reflection. Remember when we talked about parabolas. Parabolas, to do a mirror reflection, you had to make it a negative. Remember the parabola? It was up, right? And that meant the a equals positive, and then it went down. That made the a equals negative. Same thing with this. So for values that are less than 0, this function now is a negative. Because all you have to do is check this out. All you had to do to make this into this stuff here is take this and make it a negative. Negative, negative, +3. Negative, negative, +2. Negative, negative, +1. Right? All the way up to 0. Now, look at this. That's what I did. I took the negative, made it a negative. Negative, negative becomes a positive. Negative, negative becomes a positive. Negative, negative becomes a positive. You see how that works? So what you've got here is what we call piecewise. You're going to call it piecewise for a specific reason. You're going to look at the positive values of your function, which is x greater than or equal to 0. So you're looking at the right-hand side of your function out that way, positive values of x. You're going to look at this, and you're not going to change anything. You're going to look at the positive equation. But when you look at this side, okay, which is x less than 0, remember, everything gets flipped. It's flipped just because we're looking at the absolute value of it. And that's the piecewise function. So in the next podcast, I'm going to show you a couple more examples, and this will clarify everything.